Welcome to edition 71 of Common Filth Radio. Thank you very much for listening. How are you doing? No, that's a serious question. How are you doing? And don't lie to me. Are you doing well? I hope you're doing well. But me, I'm battling a headache. I took some stuff, so that'll go away soon. But other than that, I can't complain. Liars are gonna lie, demons will flail when you call them by their correct name, but you know what? That's to be expected. That is to be expected. All things considered, I am doing all right, and a contributing factor to my mood is this wonderful fan art you are looking at right now by Chromatic Scale. Chromatic Scale has a Twitter, which you can check out below, so everyone send your thanks. Common Filth Radio, the best of 2015, is out on Bandcamp right now. $4 or more, 11 plus hours of material. An hour and 50 minutes of that material is exclusive to this collection, never before heard, not available anywhere else. And also, the return of Common Filth Extra. Common Filth Extra episode 5 is a great episode, and you should all check that out. It is $1 or more if you wish to pay more. It's a 27-minute episode, and it is eye-opening. It is really good. Thanks to the power of the internet, we now have some more footage that has been captured over the last week or two that I would like to get into. And before I get into these stories, and I am going to read them in a sequence that is very intentional. There's nothing innocent about this. I have something I need to say by putting these pieces of information next to each other. But like I said, there is something I need to say before we get into all of this. There are a lot of societal dysfunctions, personal dysfunctions that you can quantify. You can look at IQ numbers, average IQs. You can look at crime statistics. You can look at HIV statistics. That's one of my favorites. But what can be quantified only takes you so far. A lot of problems we have are problems that can't be put into a spreadsheet. For example, loyalty. Loyalty cannot be quantified in any meaningful way. And a severe lack of loyalty is what we have now. And by we, I mean white people. Those of European stock. And you need to hear this. Specifically Western European people. But don't turn off. You need to hear this. You need to stop believing your own bullshit. There are problems, very, very deep problems within the psyche of Western Europeans that need to be addressed. It is nothing short of disturbing that we react so harshly to those trying to help us, trying to say that what we are doing is wrong. And I will provide to you an example. This is from the BBC. Cologne sex attacks require police rethink. Police in Germany will have to rethink their tactics following attacks on women in the city of Cologne on New Year's Eve, a senior official has said. Ralph Jaeger, Interior Minister for North Rhine-Westphalia, said police had to adjust to the fact that groups of men had attacked women en masse. 3 suspects had been identified, he said, but no arrests had been made. Scores of women say they were robbed or sexually assaulted by men, reportedly of Arab or North African appearance. Mr. Jaeger also warned that anti-immigrant groups were trying to use the attacks to stir up hatred against the refugees. What happens on the right-wing platforms and in chat rooms is at least as awful as the acts of those assaulting the women, he said. This is poisoning the climate of our society. This treacherous fuck is allowed by the German people to represent them. Angela Merkel, also a treacherous fuck, chosen by the people of Germany to represent them. You cannot quantify it, but you can document it. And it has been documented over and over and over again. I've documented on this show acts of treachery over and over and over again. And before you start whining about Yanks and Americans and all of this other shit, keep in mind, we elected an Indonesian homosexual mulatto twice over to represent us. America's European genetic makeup is mostly Western and Northern European, both of which share a common pathology that runs deep. Deeper than we'd like to admit. Say what you want about the Slavs, the Eastern Europeans, but I don't see their leadership whining about right-wingers when the natural result of their moral apathy actually comes into being. And that is what this whole clusterfuck is. You're allowing your women to be defiled. I mean, kind of. They've already defiled themselves several times over. In a more socially acceptable way, but morally it's still unacceptable. But they're allowing themselves to be so apathetic, so pathetic, that they refuse to protect what is theirs. In the most basic sense. What do these people prioritize? What are their priorities? They prioritize going after those evil right-wingers on chat rooms. Yep, that's the problem. Maybe, just maybe, the priority is this. Brussels police investigate reports of police orgy amid terror alert. In the 6 weeks since the Paris terrorist attacks, law enforcement agencies in Brussels, where most of the attackers lived or had ties, have been denounced as slow, unresponsive, disorganized, and even incompetent. To this list of woes, another was added Wednesday. Officials are investigating accounts of an alcohol-fueled orgy at a police station one night last month, while Brussels, the Belgian capital, was nearly shut down over fears of a copycat terrorist attack. Well, look, moral decay doesn't matter. It doesn't affect anybody, and if it's white people doing it, that's just fine. That's okay. I mean, they're just expressing their Ubermensch Aryan love towards one another, and that shouldn't be questioned because, continuing. At the time, soldiers had been sent to Brussels to help patrol the city, which was paralyzed with fear. Schools, government offices, markets, and the public transit network were all closed. According to an article in La Dernière Heure, a local newspaper, the orgy occurred sometime between November 21st, when the federal government's crisis center raised the alert level for the Brussels region to 4, the highest, and November 26, when the alert level was reduced to 3. About 20 soldiers from a light infantry unit known as Bataillon des Chasseurs, were bivouacked at a police station in Ganseren, a neighborhood north of Molenbeek. According to the newspaper, after the police station closed for the night at 10 p.m., 2 policewomen were invited upstairs to the floor where the soldiers were sleeping and had sex with 8 of them. 8! 8! You have your priorities straight. No, you really do. A spokeswoman for the Brussels West Police Agency, one of 6 police departments that patrol the city, confirmed on Wednesday that it had begun an internal investigation after the article was published Tuesday. The police agency is responsible for Molenbeek, the working-class neighborhood in Brussels that was home to several of the men involved in the Paris attacks, which killed 130 people. The Paris attacks have cast a harsh light on the shortcomings of the Belgian authorities, who have been ridiculed for a series of missed opportunities to identify and arrest the suspects. Well, because they're all jerking each other off. The men are having beautiful gay babies. That's what they're doing. They're consummating their gay marriages, and the women are sleeping with 8 men at a time. You know what? It doesn't affect anybody. It does not skew your sense of priority, engaging in depravity. It doesn't. It doesn't affect anything. It doesn't matter. So just go to sleep, go spout IQ statistics to each other, and everything will be great. But for the rest of us, just for the sake of completion, we'll continue. At least 3 suspects in the attacks lived in Molenbeek and were known to the authorities. Abdelhamid Aboud, the man accused of orchestrating the attacks, had appeared in recruiting videos for the Islamic State, but he was able to slip in and out of Belgium without being arrested. The 2 other suspects, I'm not going to bother reading these names, were interrogated and released by the Belgian authorities after trying to travel to Syria earlier in the year. They're Arab names. I'm pretty sure they are. I'll link to this below. You can check it yourself. A 4th man suspected of involvement in the attacks, Bilal Hadfi, give it a shot, lived in Brussels but reports this year of his radicalization at school, and rumors of his departure to Syria were not passed on to the police, according to school officials. After the attacks, near misses by the Belgian authorities and their French counterparts continued. Salah Abdeslam was involved in a routine traffic stop by the French police a day after the attacks, but was allowed to continue on because he had not yet been linked to them. Adding to the string of missteps, he may have managed to evade a huge manhunt because of a Belgian law banning police raids on private homes during certain hours. That's orgy time. That's the time where daddy's got to get his cummies. On Wednesday, police officials confirmed that an investigation into the reports of an orgy among police officers had begun. I cannot give more information on the internal investigation because it is ongoing and because investigations into the Brussels police force are highly complicated, the Brussels West police spokeswoman said in a phone interview. Right now, we don't know the extent of the investigation yet. Maybe officers from other zones are implicated, and I don't want to set off an internal fight by commenting on police officers from other zones. Internal investigations into the Brussels police are, as a rule, highly complicated and very sensitive. The fractured nature of policing in Brussels has been a target of criticism since the Paris attacks. Brussels, while officially bilingual, is largely French-speaking. However, it is in the country's Dutch-speaking region, which has gained wealth and clout in recent decades, relative to Wallonia, the French-speaking region to the south. There is also a tiny German-speaking minority in the southeast. Power in Belgium is delicately distributed along regional and linguistic lines, making political oversight difficult, not to mention basic intelligence sharing. In addition to the 6 local police agencies, Brussels has a federal police service, 2 intelligence services, 1 military, 1 civilian, and a terrorism threat assessment unit whose chief, exhausted and demoralized, resigned over the summer but remains on the job. So he resigned, but he's still working? That's not how it works, buddy. The idea of merging the 6 local agencies has been floated over the years, but has run into opposition among the mayors of the 19 boroughs that make up Brussels, who share police oversight powers on a rotating basis. This sounds like a big clusterfuck, and it also sounds very boring. The sense of duty, the sense of obligation, the sense of loyalty has to be close to zero amongst these people who would rather fuck than do their job. No, they want to get paid to fuck. Which is probably why prostitution is legal in so many of these fucking countries. But hey, it doesn't matter because you can't quantify it, you can't put it into a spreadsheet. Don't worry about it, it's a non-issue because how people conduct themselves personally, it doesn't matter. It's not like they bother you when they're asking for heroin money when you are walking home from work. No, that doesn't affect anybody. That does not reflect who we are as a culture, and the tolerance of it actually improves who we are as a people. And if you say otherwise, that's hate. Or it's irrational religious fundamentalism. Either way, I guess I'm wrong. We know what happens when people are loyal to nothing but how their cock makes them feel. But it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. So we got one more here. This is from Express, home of the Daily and Sunday Express. Not immediately familiar with this. Anyway, the headline: School encourages children to cook and clean for asylum seekers for work experience. Parents have slammed school after their children were asked to cook and clean for asylum seekers. Pupils in Lübeck, Germany, will work in kitchen and change bed linen at a nearby asylum center for practical work experience. The 13 and 14-year-olds will be expected to carry out the chores between 8:30 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. A furious parent shared the letter informing them of the controversial project on Facebook. She wrote, "I'm definitely not a hater, and I am really tolerant, but this is taking things too far. Let's translate this through treacherous Western European idiot speak." She wrote, the furious parent wrote, "You know, I'm this morally apathetic piece of shit that doesn't really care about anything. But this is taking it too far." Well, what does that part mean? It means, this is showing the failure of my worldview. And I don't like that because I want to hold on to that. That's what Furious Parent is saying. Is there a new subject in Lübeck schools called servitude? You gotta be in servitude towards your cum, your tingles. Her post raked in more than 2,300 shares and 1,000 comments, with one user comparing the scheme to slavery. Another called on refugees to clean their mess with their own hands rather than enlisting children. Well, look, if they were capable of cleaning their own mess, they would have stayed put. And you could argue that it isn't their mess if you're talking about certain regions. I get it, it's hard to clean up drone strikes, but it can be done. And there's another one, taking it too far. Don't judge, it doesn't affect you, you're taking it too far. Those are the dominant values. Dominant values I see every day. Every day I see a new comment in my comments list on YouTube. I support this, but this is bad. This is just taking it too far. You know, there can't be something being taken too far if that thing doesn't exist in the first place. If that thing is never in existence, if that thing is not allowed to thrive and grow, there is no taking it too far. So fuck you, furious parent Facebook user. You have no idea what you're doing. You have no idea what you're up against, and yet you're bringing children into this world who will go on to create more evil. Behavior and impulse is the lens through which we see the world. Now, these things can be changed, but most people think that the way they are, the way the lens is situated on our worldview, it's just fine. Doesn't need adjusting, doesn't need repair, it's just fine. It's just fine that the biggest problem is taking things too far. We find it to be a-okay that the people who occupy the top of our social hierarchy, the people we consider beyond reproach, we think it's just fine that those people engage, so happen to engage in the worst behavior imaginable. And the only person criticizing this, telling you why it's ruinous, why it's damaging, you lash out at, you attack, you lie about, when all he's trying to do is help you. But like I said before, people want the most what people need the least. You want the most what you need the least. Sometimes I don't realize how right I am. And sometimes I wish I wasn't. I wish people would surprise me and prove me wrong, but they don't. Especially people who should know better. As I mentioned last week, I had emails left to cover, and I'm not sure where I left off with those, or even if I read them at all. So I'll click through and see how many of these I can get through, and then get to Reddit and get to Ask FM. It's going to be one of those split it into 2 days type of episodes. Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, you might have noticed a sudden change in quality of my voice. It's because I fell asleep. My bed is right here, and I crawled into it mid-sentence. I stopped recording and just got in. Then I woke up and I sounded a little groggy the following morning. So, taking you behind the scenes a little bit here. Just some of the titles of unread emails. CF was right again. Why didn't I listen? Look, like I said, sometimes I don't want to be, but look, if you let God show you the truth will be shown. You will see the truth. And sometimes that is painful, and sometimes you wish that didn't happen. Because truth gets you a lot of enemies, but you know what? It's not good to be friends with the devil. CF was right again, and why didn't I listen? 2 different emails, and there's even more where that came from. But we will start with this one. Thank you for taking the time to read this message. I greatly appreciate it. You are an inspiration to me, have given me many thoughts and knowledge I would not otherwise have, both biblically and in everything else. And you've shown me a strong man who stands by his beliefs and is unwavering, in a time where there seems to be so few of them. Well, thank you for the kind words. I have a few questions, all of them are similar, but their differences are distinct. I ask very kindly that you would answer them to the best of your ability. This is both for my personal benefit and ignorance, as well as for me to know your personal doctrine better before I commit to listening to more of your episodes. I've listened to roughly 7 right now, but it occurred to me 7 episodes in, like the dummy I am, that I could simply learn your thoughts by asking you rather than just inspecting what you say to other people. So without further ado, the questions. Firstly, at one point in episode 61 of Common Filth Radio, He said, we shouldn't accept degenerates into our non-degenerate neighborhoods. But how can we not accept them? Are we supposed to harass them? Fill their house with our own fecal matter and leave Uncle Sam hates you notes all over their walls? That sounds like something they'd do. I'm putting that out there. I genuinely don't understand what you want from people in this regard. I want people to protect themselves. Look, in all practicality, you can't drive these people away. These people who it's very difficult to explain to your children what they do. People bring up to me all the time, would you rather live next to black people or would you rather live next to gay people? I think I'd find it a hell of a lot easier to explain black people to my younger relatives, to my potential children. I really do think that it would be easier to explain the fact that black people are black because God made them that way. All right, more of this email. Secondly, if I am a Christian, and I am, what do you think my feelings towards these type of people should be? Should I hate them and want to kill them but not do so? Should I want to shame them for their sin verbally and do so aggressively? Should I feel that they are degenerate and try to act as a godly influence towards them? After all, if they're not literally currently possessed by a demon, then they can be saved just the same as anyone else and can have an example made from us. I have more questions, but unfortunately your email system won't let me send too much more. Thank you for your time. You sent that through Bandcamp, actually, which I don't have any experience with, but commonfilth@commonfilth.com is my email address. You can use a personal email address you have or a throwaway. It doesn't matter. I don't reveal emails or names. I used to reveal first names, unless of course they asked me not to. But yeah, even names I don't do anymore, and email addresses obviously I don't read those out. So it's all private here. As a Christian, the answer is pretty simple. You should pray that God shows them the error of their ways. And it's that simple. You should pray that their heart turns towards repentance. It's again that simple. Okay, next email. Hey CF, I'm a high school sophomore and I've been listening to your show for a while now. I just wanted to say thank you for showing me the light through your Facebook page, Tumblristas. It has changed my views and got me into listening to your radio show. I cannot thank you enough. The gratitude is all mine. I would not be here without people like you. On the last day of school before Christmas break, my trade school, which I thought was fairly neutral politically, gave out a school newspaper. I at first thought nothing of it, but it turns out that two of these stories in the newspaper were your standard Huffington Post dildo verse, this person is so brave circle jerks. Below is a link to the transcript of those two articles because my scanner wasn't working. Sorry about that. If you could find the time to read these and give your opinion on them, that would be amazing. Please forgive me for any possible transcript errors. Well, thank you for taking the effort to do this. I'll copy and paste this link right now. All right, let's read this. It's not too long. Maybe we won't read all of it. All right, so this is from this school paper belonging to a school that a listener of ours attends. And the transcript from this newspaper article says this. He, she, they. What's in a pronoun? Title of the article. And I'm going to edit out. I'm just going to say this school whenever the school's name comes up. Outside this school's community, the state legislature has stalled in its discussion of the so-called bathroom bill, which would allow transgender men and women to use the corresponding restroom. Here at this school, however, the issue of gender identity is much more personal. Senior, oh god, they give full names. I'm feeling conflicted about this because I do want to read this, but I don't want to unveil any information that could be compromised. I'll skim over it. The vice principal said that regardless of how someone self-identifies, he wants fair and equal treatment for all students. Whenever there's a transgender student, my first concern is their dignity and respect from other students. My feeling is that I'm not 100% sure that the school's students are pretty respectful of those choices. He said, this person came out in 8th grade and still continues to take steps in his transition. Oh my god. It's like a Vine marathon come to life. Oh, socially transitioned by ninth grade. You can know all of this shit about yourself by the time you're 14, can't you? 13, 14, whatever the fuck. I started testosterone in July of 2014. I'll be getting my name changed soon as well as my gender marker. Once I'm 18, I'll schedule top surgery. I'm gonna throw up. These fucking kids talking about sawing off their titties. And people say this doesn't matter. The psychological condition, the mental condition, the mental health of children, people say it does not matter. This is where we're going, but it doesn't matter. The future belongs to the unhinged, but it doesn't matter. It affects everything. Everything. But nobody cares. Because you can't write a piece of, you can't pass it through the legislature. You can't quantify it, therefore it doesn't matter. Fucking moral invalids. Soulless, dead-eyed pieces of shit. Saying, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Don't judge, it doesn't matter, it doesn't affect you. What was the other one? You're taking it too far? That's another one. Thanks for sending this to me. You're seeing it. I can't imagine growing up now. I was talking to a friend pretty recently. A couple hours ago, actually. He said something to me. He said something to me along those lines. It must be hell growing up now. Especially if you were of a decent spirit. So, you're in my prayers, man. So, just stay safe. Try not to get expelled. I know you have a ways to go, but I think you can pull it off. Next, London Underground passenger launches homophobic rant at drag queen in shocking video. And it links to Huffington Post and YouTube. Keep up the good work. I did not look at this prior to opening this email, but I'll check it out. Though I will give my thoughts. Should be pretty obvious by now what my thoughts will be. London Underground. This person will probably be arrested soon enough. It was caught on video, so very valuable police resources are going towards putting this person behind bars and getting them off the street because they really are a danger. People who speak their mind are dangerous. The sun has not only set on the British Empire, it has the sun has exploded, and the only people left there are radioactive waste. Next. Hello, I am a gay man and I really like your videos and agree with most of the stuff you say. With that said, every time you talk about gay people, it's always in a disgusted manner, which is understandable. But do you feel like all gay people are your enemies and you just pass off as a disgusting fag, even those outside of the LGBT community spectrum or whatever it is? Also, am I a sinful creature for you? And if yes, do I have salvation or am I doomed already? Thanks. Well, look, it doesn't matter what I think. I'm not the one you should be asking this to. You should be asking God. If we're talking about sin and whatnot, you need to ask God. God knows better than I do. Ask Him. But what I can say is that it all comes down to repentance. And unfortunately, most people in the gay community are, I do not get that impression. I don't get that impression at all. Next, and this is, I think there might have been something wrong with Bandcamp's email system, so I'm going to read this to the best of my abilities. It is not the sender's fault. It's not the first time I've had this problem with them. Dear Sir, regarding CF number 70 and the person who is questioning the alt-right, they certainly can't handle any criticism and behave like the left when people do so. I concur with his findings at each point he mentioned. I noted over the last year as they increasingly went inclusive, NPI, and exclusion of a Christian from their conference at the NPI. You inspire me to set up my own blog site. Your shows are a power to good, or power of good. This is not the first email I've received like this. Again, I'm not saying this shit out of any dishonesty. Look, if people want to belong to the common filth of which I speak, I have no control over that. That is their decision, not mine. Next. Hey CF, here's a bit of faggotry that I was brought aware of this week. I got an iPhone 6S from about a month ago to replace the iPhone 4 I inherited from my mother. Yesterday I set a few alarms to go off back to back to be sure I would get up for work. Instead of waking up to the submarine alarm I am used to, I was woken by a song I had never heard before. Upon further inspection, I discovered it was a song from a U2 album, not YouTube. U2 as in the band. And even more disturbingly, the album art that had invaded my once sacred phone screen was of a shirtless man hugging the waist of a younger shirtless man. The shit was loaded on my phone by Apple intentionally. Instead of some other shitty band's shitty song with a more innocuous album cover, they plagued my phone with what appears to be foreplay to gay fellatio. The gay community. I'm going to send an email to the tech support people to see how I would remove it. Just thought I would throw that into the pile of stories of how our beloved communities are normalizing faggotry to broaden their consumer base. Thanks for what you do. And fight the pause with all your might. I'm doing my best. Hey, that's kind of a similar email to the last. And now it is known for the record. It is in the pile of stories. Look what happens when nerds get into positions of financial power. Look at the kind of lifestyles they promote. Death styles, rather. And if you want to know where when I invented that term, listen to Common Filth Extra Episode 5. Trust me, it's good. Not surprising in the least. Not surprising at all. Next. This may seem like a silly or rhetorical question, but it that when I see news stories about the current state of Europe / the world, or just certain poll-related topics in general, that I just don't feel much about it or care too much. A bad thing? Is this the moral apathy you are always talking about? Certainly I don't wish horrible things upon people, but there just seems to be a point where these results were bound to happen sooner or later due to continued bad decisions in the past. I honestly try to do as much as I can to help set people on the right path, but how does one help those who don't wish to be helped? How does one help those who don't wish to be helped? This is a question that is very relevant to me, actually. Thank you as always. You always seem to help me stay on track. Hey, so do you. Again, the gratitude is all mine. This is not the moral apathy of which I speak. Not in the least. In fact, I think that it's a sign that you're showing some growth because you know what? It doesn't affect me too much anymore either. I can view this stuff very clinically. I can view this stuff in a very detached manner because I know what bad behavior leads to. I know what rotten impulse leads to. Nobody else does, and that's what gets me mad. It's not so much the events anymore. It's how people respond to the events. That's what disappoints me. People who really should know better. But they don't. Your lack of emotion now is probably a sign that you're more interested in building something rather than joining something, rather than belonging to something, rather than joining in a giant unproductive circle jerk. You want to build something for yourself, and I think that's great. Next up. Hey CF, just got done listening to all of your best of 2015. Great stuff. Well, thank you for supporting what I do. One thing I thought of while listening that I don't think you have ever discussed in any length is the relationship between personal freedom and sinning. St. Augustine wrote that when one is free to do whatever they wish, they become enslaved to their urges, be they sexual, food-related, etc. Dr. E. Michael Jones expanded on this idea in his book Libido Dominandi, which I highly recommend. I've been thinking about it myself and come to realize that people's conception of freedom is vastly different than what it is. Freedom is not the license to do whatever you please, whether it be getting sodomized or smoking a J, brah. But that is how the filthy commoners see it. A very vulgar and profane view of it. Freedom is nothing more than true self-determination, and it comes with a sense of duty and responsibility. When people think that their freedoms include various vices and sins, it often shackles them to it. Think of how many otherwise good young men waste hours a day masturbating to disgusting porn. I was guilty of that in my teenage years, but I'm now aware of how vile and damaging it is. I'm curious as to what your thoughts are, as you are one of the few people whose opinion I respect on these matters. That does sound like something I've said before, but I don't think I've elaborated on it. I don't think I needed to. Yeah, you're right. The common idiot thinks that freedom is a license to engage in hedonism, failing to realize the irony of it. People are frequently unaware of their own irony, and it's upsetting. It is, because I want better for them than they want for themselves. When you are not free of vice, when you are not free of sin, you get police orgies. Freedom, and you're right. What people view as freedom is not freedom. What people view as subjugation, what people view as oppression is true freedom. And the second part of the email, on a somewhat related note, I am thinking of starting a similar channel to yours, the major difference being that instead of battling and exposing demons, I will be trying to show the opposite. Showcase great works of literature and philosophy that encompass our heritage. I'm very well read in non-paused Western canon, and would like to disseminate this knowledge and understanding to people who are too apathetic to read the book, but motivated enough to listen to a YouTube video. St. Augustine's work I mentioned above, City of God, would be one of my first any advice in this regard. If you can make it as short as possible, ironic, I know, given the usual length of these shows, but if you really want to spread the popularity of these works, you have to make it concise, entertaining, exciting. In order to pull it off, you'd have to develop your talent for doing it. And the only way to do that is to engage, to practice. For example, me. I was definitely not as good at the beginning as I am now. Nobody says, "Oh, I like your old stuff better." Which is great. I don't want them to say that. So let me know when you've put something together. I'm eager to take a look at it. Next, a very good and to the point podcast, referring to episode 70. I usually don't go on Return of Kings anymore, but I thought I would take a peek. Predictably, and ever since the NPI conference where Roosh attended, there is an article with a picture of a swastika inset into a Freedom multicolor flag, the gay flag, accompanying with an article on what gay marriage means to the straight man. And of course, another article on the alt-right introducing it to the male MGTOW. Readers of Return of Kings. Interesting and predictable. Well, I actually came across that article that you're talking about. Rich did write an article about what homosexual means to the heterosexual man, and it was not pro-gay at all. So, for whatever that's worth. Again, going for mass inclusiveness no matter what. A left-wing liberal strategy? Well, arguably. Regards and all the best for the new year. Well, thank you very much. Hello CF, I've been a fan of your YouTube channel for almost a year now. However, on your related channels listing, you have a Red Letter Media link there, which I find interesting. As I had once been a fan of some of their content, in particular the Mr. Plinkett series of film reviews. Question, are you the voice of the mysterious Mr. Plinkett? And if so, were those critiques your handiwork? No, but I do get that a lot. And the related channels are not picked by me, that is generated by YouTube algorithms. So, I did not have a hand in crafting that list. And if so, okay, I already read that. That is to say, did you script the reviews yourself or was it collaborative? I stopped watching Red Letter Media because Mr. Plinkett disappeared, disappointing as it was the only segment really worth watching in my opinion. Nope, that is not me. I believe that's Mike Stoklasa, I think his last name is. I'm saying that wrong, but good. He doesn't deserve it. He doesn't deserve to have his name pronounced right. He hasn't earned it. Anyway, it is remarkable how in line with my sentiments these philosophical sojourns of yours are. I use guerrilla memeing on a similar level, directed at certain internet targets that sponsor cultural Marxist motifs. It is fun, predictable, and has a larger level of influence than some may predict. Either way, it is great to know that fellas like you are out there who actually give a shit about the direction things are going. And to do it as intelligently and amusingly as you have done is refreshing to say the least. Continued success. Well, thank you for the very kind email. I do it for you and so many others who write into me and so many others who listen to me. I value everyone. It is a blessing, and I really do mean that. It is a blessing to have this audience. It is a blessing to serve this audience, and And I'm glad that I get so much positive feedback. Next. The man with a bionic penis will lose his virginity to a dominatrix who ran for parliament. You people are trying to kill me. Just as I say all that stuff about you people being a blessing. I don't take that back, but it's gotten to a point where it's about equal parts. I'm finding this stuff, and you people are sending it to me. So, I mean, do you guys want to hear this? I don't know. But the email says, thought you'd be interested in this one, CF. I'm honestly not so sure what to make of it. When I first saw the headline, I was sure it was going to be Clickhole or some other satirical news site, but no. It was from a legitimate source. Have a good one and keep on keeping on. Alright, we'll read some of it. A man whose penis was ripped off in a road accident and who has subsequently received surgery to fit an 8-inch bionic penis is to lose his virginity to a quote-unquote award-winning dominatrix who unsuccessfully ran for parliament. Mohammed Abad from Edinburgh was run over when he was 6 years old in Huddersfield in 1978. During the accident, his penis was sliced off as he was dragged 600 feet by a car. Well, that sounds fucking painful. Mr. Abad had surgery to fit a fully functional 8-inch bionic penis in 2012. The organ has 2 tubes which inflate when he presses a button on his testicle. The greatest minds of our generation are going into boner research. Boner research. As much as I want to make that the title of this episode, I'm probably going to settle on something else. Boner research. Look, I feel bad for this guy, but he's shameless. Next. It says, thanks. I just wanted to say that I appreciated your comments with regards to homosexuals and repentance. I'm a homosexual Christian living just outside of San Francisco. I'm celibate and always have been outside of a couple years when my psychologists tried to convince me to be otherwise. Well then, that's just fucking great. It's a very hard situation when one of the primal drives of human nature is malfunctioning and dragging you in a direction you don't want to go. There isn't much help you can get in the world today either. Programs that try to cure homosexuality have incredibly low success rates even if they work at all. If I go to a psychologist, they'll be more interested in curing me of my belief system than helping me deal with my broken sex drive. I have contacted doctors asking for drugs to inhibit my sex drive, but they completely ignore me when I bring the subject up. They literally do not return my messages. Well, because there's no money to be made off of you. As sick and predatory as that may seem, that's the truth. I'm only in my 30s, and the thought of having to go through this for 30 to 40 more years is horrifying. Now, look, I'll elaborate on those comments. You'll say, well, isn't there more money to be made in selling me drugs? Not really. Because they're probably working for a hospital. I covered a story not too long ago where a urologist spoke out against the hospital he worked for. He spoke out against their activism in the community for the LGBT community. And this guy, he's a respected urologist. He said, this is a high-risk lifestyle. We as healthcare providers, it is very irresponsible for us to be promoting this behavior. So your doctors are like, shit, I don't want to get fired. Let me use this as an opportunity to show how great I am to the PR department. Okay, continuing with the email. Incidentally, when I feel strongly tempted for sexual contact, I read Craigslist's Men for Men section to see all the other homosexuals around me and the things they're into. That kills the temptation pretty fast. That sounds like pretty similar to something I just recorded. Went on a forum, not Craigslist, but a forum, and read posts from it, and it's fucking horrible. It is so disturbing that I just don't understand these people who say that personal conduct doesn't matter. I never will. To disregard personal conduct and consider that a good thing. I think it's a symptom of psychosis. I really do, but the email finishes. Anyway, thanks again. I really like the show. I'm glad there are sane people out there. Well, thank you very much for the email, and I hope you are successful in overcoming your struggle. Next up, just wondering, what do you think of the YouTuber The Golden One? First I've heard of The Golden One, actually. And I'll save this email. And if I am of a mind to remember, I will go back and look and report back to you if I find something worthy of talking about here. Next. After pedophilia, what's next? Bestiality, with a link to salon.com. Human on dolphin sex is not really that weird. An article from, I believe, June 2014. Oh, that's just great. I think we've had our fill of zoophilia this week, or zoosexuality, whatever the fuck they call it. Tumblerista's episode 45. Go check it out. Next. Why didn't I listen? Honestly, I thought you were joking about the alt-right being fag enablers, and they mocked you for being paranoid. But as I looked into it a bit more and realized you were right. Some people on the alt-right prefer to accept degenerate white people rather than people who are anti-degeneracy. I've also realized the alt-right is intellectual masturbation and believe the alt-right has been co-opted by pause loads and you know who. I'm in a dilemma right now about my political views and being associated with the alt-right. Thank you, CF. I will be donating very soon. I'm very keen to listen to your work. Well, thank you very much. As I mentioned, I was talking to a friend earlier, and I mentioned to him that I'm really sick of ideology. I am. I'm sick of this bullshit where we just talk about ideas and talk about, oh look, we could pass this law and build the wall and then everything will be fine. And then everything will be great. It shows a stunning lack of imagination. Moreover, to be concerned entirely with politics, legislation, other nerd shit, and to put a premium on that over personal conduct, having the right opinions, that's no good if you are a moral invalid. You can say all the right things, believe all the right things, but at the end of the day, who are you? How do you behave? You know, I say at the end of a lot of shows, take care of yourselves, be good to each other. I say that because I mean it. I say that, and what, you think I go out and beat my girlfriend in a drunken stupor? That is not taking care of myself, and that is not being good to each other. If I say, take care of yourselves and be good to each other, and I go off and do that, what do my words mean at that point? They mean absolutely nothing. I can tell you one thing I'm not, and that is a liar. The truth is everything in this business. And if you can't subscribe to that, you're done. People will see right through that bullshit. You, my friend, my loyal listener, are proof of this. And don't ever forget it. Hey CF, it's me again with another question. Don't remember if you've ever talked on this topic before, but I've been wondering for a while. With all of the terrible shit that you uncover, it seems it's becoming more frequent and more perverse, and it paints a grim picture of what may come. But could this all be removed from society if a major catastrophe were to occur? Perhaps if a world war came to American/European land, it'd make people realize their mortality and reevaluate their priorities, leaving no room for whatever bullshit people may peddle as social justice. Anyway, thank you again for all you do. You're an inspiration to us all. Well, thank you for keeping me going. Once upon a time, I was the opinion that we needed some serious conflict in order to unfuck some of these people, but I get the feeling that no matter what happens, people will always find a way to make it about themselves. To make it all about their myopic bullshit, make it all about their stupid struggle, their stupid, meaningless, made-up struggle. I guarantee you that when World War III happens, you will see all sorts of articles about the role non-binary people are playing in the war effort. Prepare for a whole lot of that. Maybe there's historical precedent for what I'm saying. Maybe factory workers decided to strike during wartime when supplies were desperately needed. I never heard about anything like that in my history classes, but that's not surprising. It's not surprising you wouldn't hear something like that. To show how selfish people can be. Next. CF was right again. Hey CF, I was going to ask you if you saw the thread about TRS on 8pol, but then I checked your Twitter. I was the Chaika poster ITT, if I'm pronouncing that right. Yeah, the only reason I found that was because the only time I go on 8chan is to search for this channel's name. Yes, it is very vain, but you know what? I want to know what people are saying. And it turns out that people are saying that I was right all along, so thank you. Thank you for seeing things my way, because, again, I'm not lying to you people. Anyway, you have more stuff. Anyway, I have a couple of questions about your opinion on different hobbies. Not exactly relevant, but I feel as though you need a break from toilet slavery to your soul destruction. Sure, why not? I appreciate that. What's your opinion of parkour? I've been training regularly for a year now, and it's helped me to develop discipline and stave off degeneracy. The guys that do parkour regularly are cool, and the instructor is too. He took it up for the same thing I did, and it helped him kick his old drug habit. Mind, there are plenty of degenerates in parkour. I've noticed that it destroys bad habits amongst those that keep it. Well, look, it's given you discipline. I've watched parkour videos. I think it's really cool. So if it's helping you become disciplined in other respects, that's great. I'm all for that. And next, what's your opinion? Oh, not next, but in the same email. What's your opinion of homebrewing? I do it on the side. I have a batch of mead brewing right now. And it's a great thing to learn when shit hits the fan. I don't abuse the shit because that would affect my acrobatics. It also seems to be a trend that most homebrewers I know are highly functioning members of society. I thought that was going to be high functioning autistics. That's why I started laughing. The internet has ruined my brain. Or at least the part of the brain that holds the sense of humor. We have the patience to brew something we might drink as opposed to the impatience of buying something to be finished within hours of buying. What's your opinion of recreational TV, anime, AMC shows, etc.? No caveat to add there. Or here, rather. Regards from New Zealand, hashtag Common Filth did nothing wrong. I have no insight when it comes to homebrewing, no real opinion other than it seems a hell of a lot more productive and healthy than what a lot of other people do with their time, with their free time. Hashtag homebrewers did nothing wrong. I like that hashtag. Commonwealth did nothing wrong. I didn't have a blue check mark on my Twitter account that got removed, so nobody gives a shit about me. Also, I'm not a homosexual, so I'm not a natural aristocrat, so nobody gives a shit about me, so I don't think that'll be the next big trending topic, but I appreciate it. I've never been a hashtag. Next, with Obama's illegal executive order about gun control coming this year, I was wondering about your stance on gun control. Should the average citizen be able to own DMRs, LMGs, etc., or do you think there should be a point where a line is drawn? Also, it may just be me, but in your latest videos, your voice seems to sound a bit robotic. Either my sound card is dying or your mic is. I think it's your sound card because I'm not doing anything different over here. I listen back to everything I do, and it hasn't sounded any different through the headphones I use while I'm recording. So, you're the first one to complain about it. So, you might want to look at what's happening on your end. But yes, guns are good. Everybody should have every gun that the military has. Hashtag gun equality. Hashtag same gun. And this episode is getting out of hand. I've yet to do Reddit questions. It's a good thing I have time. Alright, first, CF, are you secretly Trillium? No, but Trillium's a good kid. I like him a lot, and you should all check his SoundCloud, which is in the link below. Yeah, I'm not Trillium because I am not half black, and I don't live in Australia, so. And to Trillium, if you're listening to this, sorry we did not get to watch the Ninja Turtles Christmas special. We'll have to do that after my post block, even though Christmas is over. It's been on my mind, and I felt guilty about it because there's been no way that I could contact you. Next one, post face. Okay, since that's not a question, what do you think of Saddam Hussein? Saddam Hussein did nothing wrong. Hashtag Saddam Hussein did nothing wrong. And some person asked if The video I uploaded called Inevitable was me. It is not me. It's from an old YouTube guy named, well, I don't want to give out his name because, yeah, he got ran off by some trolls off the internet and he never quite recovered his popularity, but he's still kicking around in some capacity. He has no idea who I am. I had some of his old blogs on a hard drive for some reason, so I made video art out of them. But no, that is not me in that video. All right, moving on. This was a very popular post in the question and comment thread. I don't know if the sender looked at any of the responses, but we will read some of the responses. There are many. And the comment goes like this. Hey CF, sorry if this turns out to be long, but I'm deeply troubled, and I feel like you might be able to provide a word of advice. I recently realized how inherently dysfunctional modern Western civilization has become. I feel you eloquently put into words the disillusion I and many others have with the deeply warped value system imposed on us by mass media and subsequently society. You see, I used to identify with the LGBT lifestyle quite heavily. This becomes relevant later. I only turned 16 back in August, but because of unrelated factors, I already feel like I've ruined my life irreversibly. I don't feel like there's much point in going into detail, but long story short, I made more than a few bad decisions. While I did okay at my GCSEs in secondary school and I'm currently studying A-levels at a good college, for a variety of reasons I don't feel like I'll ever be able to pursue my childhood dreams and that I'll be doomed to a life of unfulfilled ambitions, of what could have beens. A few months ago, I decided to kill myself. I set a date and a plan, but I deliberated on whether to tell anyone first or if I should keep it a secret. Eventually, I broke down and admitted to a friend what I planned to do. We talked for hours, but he eventually persuaded me not to go through with it and to tell my mom and dad. As a result of this, I started going to therapy. Since then, while I still have suicidal thoughts, I no longer intend to act on them. It was around the time this happened that I became interested in traditionalism and white nationalism, eventually finding your radio show. This is where the problem I hope you can help with comes in. The friend in question, who I was and still am close to, is a guy 4 years my senior who I met through r/LGB teens. And while I lost my virginity to him, I wouldn't say we dated or were ever boyfriends, but he knows something is off. He keeps asking why I don't talk to him the way I used to. Why I'm no longer affectionate with him. While I'm now deeply ashamed of that history, I couldn't give him the cold shoulder. I could not in good faith end our friendship because I owe my life to him. But he represents everything I now stand against but once reveled in. What should I do? Should we stay just friends or should I cut him off? Thanks. Just friends? Just friends? You and I have different definitions of friendship. I never once thought a prerequisite for friendship was sucking dick. You owe this predatory fuck nothing. You owe this predatory fuck zero. This quote-unquote friend preyed upon your mental vulnerabilities. He preyed upon whatever psychosis you were going through at that time. Friends don't let friends commit crimes against humanity against one another. And I'm not exaggerating. It is a crime against humanity. The lens through which this predator sees the world is warped. It is warped. Nothing he does, nothing he says can be trusted, can be believed. Because his only investment in you is come. And now we will get to the comments, the replies that people left for you. Rohue wrote, repent for your mistakes and abandon every aspect of the LGBT lifestyle. Cut yourself off from the people you once knew. Only when you've completely rid yourself of life can you begin to feel human again. It's a good comment. And then Lathakov says, you obviously should cut him off if you're honestly disgusted by what you did. Move on. You're both kids and it means nothing. However, you should remain quiet when it comes to traditionalism and white nationalism for now. You've only just stopped being a faggot and you're still finding yourself in this movement. Repenting takes longer than a few months. I'd say wait until you're at least 18 until you join discussions and start becoming active. That is with spending a lot of time reading up on it. Realize that what you did is bad and don't try to ignore that it happened. You definitely haven't thrown your life away, no matter what you think you did that's permanent. You're fucking 16. Both are very good comments, and both are answers I would have given, so that's why I read them. Additionally, you say that you feel like you're not going to be successful, that you're not going to realize your dreams, whatever those dreams may be. It's because this thing you did to yourself is casting a large, long shadow over everything you view. And you're caught up in it. You're caught up in the darkness because you feel guilt, shame, and disgust over what you did. However, you can cast away these shadows by leaving all of this behind. Leaving no trace of it. And don't look back. Don't look back. You have a lot of years ahead of you. It's up to you whether or not you want this to define the rest of them. Next. Hey CF, I am in my early 20s and recently got into the hobby of restoring antique straight razors. It helps clear my mind and keep myself busy. How can parents, etc., get kids into hobbies instead of playing Candy Crush and surfing Tumblr for pause loads? Also, I work as a correction officer at a women's prison. Within 2 weeks of being at the prison, 60% of the inmates will be in a relationship with another inmate. Do you think this helps discredit "I was born this way, breeder scum" argument? Also, it's funny because one of the Westboro Baptist Church members is a high-ranking officer there and makes for hilarious conversations. Shit, if This American Life had any balls, they'd do a story on that guy. They'd do a story on you. And, getting into hobbies, how parents can get their kids into them, they have to approach it from a positive way, not in an overbearing, you gotta do this kind of way. They should strive to make it a positive, constructive, maybe even fun shared experience. That's how you establish importance to something. That's how you establish value within something. And then once you make it interesting, positive, fun for its own sake, then you can start introducing why doing stuff like what you do is important. You could say, men a long time ago worked very hard to make these, and I think it's important to preserve them. And this establishes the importance of maintaining tradition, maintaining effort, appreciating hard work, appreciating solid labor. All that good stuff. It just has to be done in a way that doesn't seem forced. It has to be a positive shared experience. And I think that's pretty cool. I've never heard of somebody having such a hobby. I might head to the local antique stores to see if they have any straight razors in stock. Thank you very much for the question, and we'll go to the next. Hey CF, I've got 2 questions. Deus Volt, and what other YouTube channels /podcasts /blogs would you recommend to like-minded people? One of my favorite blogs is called Face to Face, and you can find that at akinokure.blogspot.com, and that is spelled AKINOKURE.blogspot.com. Agnostic, the author of the blog, his writing is excellent, and his observations on humanity and culture are unmatched in my opinion. And Deus Volt, look, I have a lot of problem with girls who cosplay as boys, boys who cosplay as girls, heterosexuals who cosplay as homosexuals, and every other way that could possibly be flipped around. I have a problem with it. I have a problem with fakers. And I'm not a Christian crusader. I don't belong to that. That was 1,000 years ago. And that's all. So, next. Yo, CF, how's it going? I've seen many of your videos. They're really good and bring some really good insight both on daily life and society. Well, thank you. Anyway, my question is the following. Do you believe that people can be recovered from crime if they submit themselves and learn from their mistakes? I've read stories in which such things happen. There's even a similar one in the Bible. Dismas, the penitent thief. That's all. Keep doing what you do, friend. You help a lot of people and will probably help more. An argument a lot of hicks like to make is, well, a murderer can go to heaven if he just believes in Jesus. He can do that, right? So why are you opposed to what I do? I like boy pussy. What does that matter? I still go to heaven if the murderer can go to heaven. And to that I say, look here, motherfucker. You know full well the path to salvation. Yet you still act like a jackass intentionally. Like I said, evil is always intentional. Evil is always intentional. These people who are engaging in this bullshit know the path. They know about Christ. Yet they still want to act like a jackass. You know what? God sees right through that shit. And you will be judged accordingly. And I think most criminals fit this description. I am positive there are exceptions, but I'm also positive that most criminals fit this description. And speaking of criminals, because I just realized that I overlooked that one part of the correction officer, his question. Do you think this helps discredit I was born this way breeder scum? Yeah, lesbianism is a farce. It is bullshit. It is one big temper tantrum. And the fact that it happens so often in female prisons is proof of that. With male homosexuality, there are things you can look at that indicate developmental malady. So yeah, your observations are correct. The born this way thing is bullshit. And that's in every respect, and not just lady thugs diking out with each other. Am I wrong to assume that you're entirely pessimistic? Do you believe there is at least a tiny chance that the Western world could rise up and free itself from the cancers plaguing it? What happened to Lot's wife when she looked back at Sodom? Pillar of salt. Pillar of salt. Is that what we want to turn into? Do we want to long for previous days when the previous days have led up to this? I say no. Fuck that. We need to take the few people left that are decent and start anew. The few people that aren't completely screwed up, that's where my optimism is. That's where I place my optimism. Because there are some people who are able to escape the bullshit that the world promotes. And we need to organize those people and learn from the mistakes of the past. Hey CF, I was in Serbia the past summer, and I saw groups of Syrians filling up the bus station in Belgrade, the capital city. They seemed to be passing through on their way to do what they did to Germany. The interesting thing that I noticed is that they were all military-aged, able-bodied men. No women or children. What do you make of this? I personally think that it is disgraceful because I am of the opinion that if there is something wrong in your homeland, it is your responsibility to fix it. I hope this gives you and listeners some perspective on the situation. Yeah, that sounds about right. And we have one more Germany story to cover, which I'll get to shortly. But nothing you're saying is surprising, but I think that it is valuable that a listener, a member of the audience, witnessed this firsthand. And I am of your same opinion. I've said as much on previous episodes, so thank you very much for your input. Next, I've just wanted to let you know a lot of poll, 8chan poll, support you over alt-right faggotry. Just do your thing, man. Another thing I want to bring up, because I follow a lot of these people on Twitter and they follow me, a lot of them are bitching about, you purity shills. Don't chill for purity as long as it doesn't matter if you do X, Y, and Z. As long as you think that white people are okay, that's fine. That's basically the attitude. Which is the attitude of the GOP as of 10 years ago and even before that. But the attitude of the GOP is it doesn't matter if you're X, Y, Z as long as you're for low taxes. And now it's morphing into it doesn't matter if you do X, Y, and Z. If you think that white people didn't do nothing, you're okay. The simplification of culture is emblematic of moral apathy. No, it doesn't matter, but this somehow matters in spite of the fact that nothing else matters. Look, if you only have one boundary, you have no boundaries. As the size of something grows, the standards for it shrink. And if whites want to be a bunch of pigs with no standards, well, they're going to get what they're going to get. We already covered that. We covered another example of that earlier on in this show. If you don't remember, feel free to start it over. Actually, forget about starting the episode from the beginning, because you can keep listening, because we're getting to this. This was posted not too long ago by Fockwolf to our subreddit. German committee says incest is a fundamental right. And he adds, at least kebab draws the line at first cousins. So we're gonna take a look at this article. Incest, a fundamental right, German committee says. Anti-incest laws in Germany could be scrapped after a government-backed group said relationships between brothers and sisters should be legal. Laws banning incest between brothers and sisters in Germany could be scrapped after... After a government ethics committee said that they were an unacceptable intrusion into the right of sexual self-determination. Hey, it is okay if white people do it. Degeneracy doesn't matter. It doesn't affect anything. Just keep that in mind. We'll keep asserting that, in spite of all of the evidence to the contrary. Criminal law is not the appropriate means to preserve a social taboo, the German Ethics Council said in a statement. The fundamental right of adult siblings to sexual self-determination is to be weighed more heavily than the abstract idea of protection of the family. Oh, that outdated abstraction about the family. Well, yeah, fuck the family. The family is not the building block of society. We need to inbreed. We need to have inbred families because, well, that'll just make for such an interesting dinner party. It'll make for such an interesting podcast. The unconventional whiteness of brother-sister sex. What does it matter? At least the kids will be white. If it ain't white, it ain't right. Even if that genetic bottleneck is white. The preservation of wasting cum. Having the self-determination to waste your cum. That is the mantra of the modern European, it seems. And I'm going to read what caused them to say this, to make this ruling. Their intervention follows a notorious case in which a brother and sister living as partners in Saxony had 4 children together. The couple had been raised separately only met when the brother, identified only as Patrick S., was an adult and his sister Susan K. was 16. Oh my god. Patrick S. was sentenced to more than 3 years in prison for incest, and the couple have since failed in their bid to have the guilty verdict overturned by the European Court of Human Rights. I'm dying. Don't look back. Do not long. Do not long for it. We don't want to become pillars of salt. The family was forced to live apart after the courts ruled there was a duty to protect their children from the consequences of their relationship. 2 of the couple's children are disabled, and it is believed that incest carries a higher risk of resulting in children with genetic abnormalities. It's just believed? That's it? It's just believed? That's not what it is? Alright, fine. Whatever. What can I do about it? What can I do about it but call the demon by its correct name? And watch those demons flail as you have defeated them in the only way that they can be defeated. Alright, next. Which generation is worse, boomers or millennials? Both. They are on even footing. They both view their moral decay, their destruction as virtuous. So, both. How well would you say you can personally detect faggotry from facial morphology, mannerisms, etc.? Also, if it's not terribly personal, how's that relationship you've mentioned going? It's going quite well. It'll be 4 years in May. So, as for the detection of homosexuality in people, the author of the blog Agnostic that I mentioned earlier, he makes a great observation that gays in their development are stuck in the ew, girls have cooties part of it. And I think that it applies not only mentally but physically as well. And it's as simple as that. So we'll go to the next one. ICF, sort of a 2-part question. Thanks for the show. I listen every week. Thank you. I will be moving to China to teach English for a year at the end of next month. Thankfully, I have 2 allies over there that have a similar mindset to us, and they helped me get the job. Very cool of them. And it's nice to know I will have like-minded friends waiting to show me the ropes and hang out with. Just wanted to ask what your thoughts are on China right now, and if you have any advice for my trip there, aside from the obvious. I'm doing as much research as I can, and so far I like what I see. The government is ham-fisted and communist, of course, but their people have a strong culture, roots, and generally traditional values. Even more so where I am going because it is a smaller town and not a big city like Shanghai. I know the 1488 crowd will hate me for this one, but I can't help but also feel excited at the prospect of finding a woman to settle down with there, because I hear wonderful things about their women. They're still feminine, traditional, and family-oriented, which sounds like a great relief from the degenerate Western women here in the States. Your thoughts on that? Thank you. Well, that will be difficult because you are not Chinese. You don't belong to the culture, and yeah, it'll be difficult if that's really what you want. And moreover, the potential children of that will struggle, but in all likelihood, your grandchildren, your children will end up marrying Chinese men or women and having babies with them, and your grandchildren will be Chinese. If that's what you want, fine. But China, from what I understand, is not so much obsessed with racial purity, because basically at 25% with white and Asian mixes, they look like the majority. Like, for example, Bruce Lee. His mother was half white. Does Bruce Lee look at all Caucasian? I say no. And I've met that kind of mixture of the opposite. They don't look Asian at all. But I don't have anything else to say about China. I do not know a whole lot about it, other than the fact that they don't seem hell-bent on their own destruction. Hope I'm not too late. What do you think are the origins of homosexual thoughts? Demons that influence people when they are vulnerable, craving companionship? Yeah, we had a couple of comments and questions that pretty much affirm that. So, yeah. I agree. I think there are other things that go into it, but that's primarily the cause, I believe. Vulnerability and predators who feast upon it. And continuing with the question. Also, did you see Toilet Law's Toilet Bowl? They mentioned you at about the 30-minute mark. I stopped watching because they talked about how diverse they were because they had a fag and a nigger on the stream. Same kind of pandering that almost everyone else does. I'm enjoying Best of 2015, God bless. Like I've said to other people, I hope it provides you with many days of entertainment. I think I got a message saying that somebody told me that they listened to it all at once, which is cool, but I don't recommend it. It is a massive collection, and I think that you should save it for when you're commuting to work. And I don't think anybody has an almost 12-hour commute. And no, I did not see it because I was out on a date with my woman. Doing normal people things on a Friday night, you know. And that does it for the Reddit questions. And I'll do Ask FM questions, even though I don't really heavily promote this Ask FM thing anymore because I don't get that many long questions from it. Email's good. Reddit is, I think I prefer Reddit the most. And yeah, Ask FM is, it's on its way out. But I do have Ask FM questions that I've neglected for the past 2 weeks roughly. But there aren't that many of them. So we'll start with this one. Hi CF, what do you view as the golden period of America's history? Well, a lot of people say they look fondly upon the 50s. They look fondly upon the 80s. And there are some good things about these times, but they're a product of a dead cat bounce. The 50s after World War II, the 80s after the bullshit of the 60s and 70s. So I really don't know. And even if I could convince myself of an American golden age, how would we replicate the conditions that led to that? It's not like we could revive the people that made it possible. So I can't give you a definitive answer on that. What I will say is that there are still pockets of gold to be found in America. There are a lot of neat people in America. There's a lot of unique characters in America that I think are worthy of preservation. I traveled a bit last year, and I saw a lot of reason why people still love America. I saw that, but It's difficult to remind yourself when you live in California and you're constantly reminded that the leadership Americans choose, it's clown leadership. Clown leadership for clown world. Next. What's your deal with Macklemore? Because he is a joke, and I want to revive 2013 jokes. They were quite funny. I miss autistic humor and meta and all that stuff. And finally, are you against trans people? What the fuck does against even mean? Oh, you're against. Are you against? Why are you against? What does against mean? Should I be for them? In spite of all of the dysfunctions they subject to themselves and society? Is that something I should be supporting? And that is not rhetorical. That is a question. That is a serious question that requires a simple yes or no answer. If we're talking about former transgenders who are honest with themselves and honest about the whole thing, I'm not against that. Walt Hayer, the guy that runs sexchangeregret.com. Great website. I recommend it to everyone. It provides many examples of why degeneracy, depravity, and deviancy are harmful, are damaging, and why no culture, no society with any trace of sanity should be promoting or tolerating this. These people need help. To enable this shit and call it love is the most hateful thing you could possibly do. But too many people are hell-bent on their own destruction. Too many people are hell-bent on attacking those trying to help them the most. Self-destruction is never acceptable. Never. Remember that the next time somebody tries to save you from your own dumb ass. This has been Common Filth Radio. Have a good one.
Grown, ain't I? The skinny nigga with the fro to the slightly bigger nigga who's a killer with the flow. Went from YouTube beats and SoundCloud, nigga. The only difference now is that I found Twitter. Fuck it, it's struggle rap, man. They never see the trouble that I'm going through. The way I sing, they think I live in bubble wrap. Fuck all that, even though I'm on some poppin' shit. With my niggas as my witness, I'm a nigga who can spit. Don't believe me? Overlooking my potential, I'm that poet to a phone, that poet was to a pencil. My mental is similar to that of a lion, and I'm the king of